You won't believe what happened next. A young actor with a skateboard grin rewired pop culture then, at 30, sat in a doctor's office and heard a sentence that could have ended the story right there, but it didn't. It became the spark for a different kind of hero. Think you know Michael J. Fox? The time travel kid? The sitcom whiz? The guy with the perfect punchline? Sure. But tonight, we're talking about the fighter, the builder, the husband, the dad, the man who kept moving when his body told him to stop. If that sounds like hype, stay with me. By the end, you'll see why millions don't just admire Michael J. Fox. They lean on him. So let's rewind. Picture a little boy from Edmonton in 1961, Michael J. Fox, living out of boxes long before he ever lived on a soundstage. His dad served in the military, so every time he found a rhythm, the rhythm changed. New schools, new towns, new hallways where nobody knew his name. You know that feeling of walking into a room where everyone already seems paired up? That was his childhood on repeat. And when you bounce that much, it messes with your sense of home. Home becomes less of a place and more of a hope. How do you make people see you when you're gone before they learn your face? For Michael J. Fox, the answer was humor. He discovered that a well-timed joke could turn strangers into allies for at least a lunchtime. If they were laughing, they weren't leaving. And if they were laughing, he belonged, if only for a moment. By 15, a door cracked open. A small Canadian TV project, Leo and Me, offered him a spot and, more importantly, a moment to stand still. It wasn't fame. It was oxygen. Being on set didn't erase the ache of all those short goodbyes, but it gave the ache a place to go. He wasn't just escaping, he was translating the restlessness into something useful. Story, timing, heart. Performing didn't heal everything, but it kept the darkness from swallowing the kid who was still figuring out who he might be. Then came the leap. 18 years old, 1979, 3 crumpled dollars, secondhand clothes, and one stubborn idea. If he didn't try Los Angeles now, he'd regret it forever. Michael J. Fox stepped into a city that smiles wide and slams doors even wider. He slept on floors and couches, whichever was available. Auditions felt like verdicts, too short, too young, too Canadian. Meals weren't guaranteed, they were victories. And when the Screen Actors Guild told him Michael Fox was taken, he didn't fold. He added a letter, a quiet little rebel yell, Michael J. Fox. That J wasn't just an initial, it was a flag planted in the ground. He wasn't going to disappear, not this time. Bit by bit, the work trickled in. A line here, a scene there, blink, and you'd miss him. But momentum works weirdly. It's invisible until suddenly it's everywhere. The call that changed his life landed in 1982. A sitcom needed a teen, conservative with quick wit and a sharper tongue. Enter Alex P. Keaton on Family Ties. The show was meant to orbit the parents, but every time Michael J. Fox walked into a scene, the center of gravity shifted. The same quickness he'd used to survive school hallways now turned into comedic jet fuel. Within a year, awards came calling. The world saw a phenom. The man inside the phenom heard the old quiet knocking at the door after tapings. Fame doesn't cancel loneliness. It just turns down the volume while cameras are on. Then came 1985, the year that put his face on dorm room walls and in pop culture history. Back to the Future needed a new lead fast. Eric Stoltz had been in the role. The team changed course and called Michael J. Fox. Problem: he was already filming the sitcom. Solution? There wasn't one, unless you count sleeping 2 hours a night as a solution. Family Ties by day, Marty McFly by night. It was electric, exhausting, and insane. He'd wrap the sitcom after sunset, drive to the movie set, and step onto a skateboard under those bright lights like he had endless batteries. The world watched Marty McFly zip through time and thought it looked effortless. It wasn't. The schedule was a treadmill cranked to 11. When the camera stopped, the adrenaline didn't. And that's when another helper walked in: alcohol. At first, it was a nightcap. Then, it was a habit. Then it was a hiding place he could pour. Meanwhile, the hits kept lining up: Teen Wolf, The Secret of My Success, Bright Lights, Big City, Doc Hollywood, Box Office, magazine covers, red carpets. He was everywhere. And amid the whirlwind, something real and steady entered his life. On the set of Family Ties, he met Tracy Pollan. She didn't fall for the spotlight. She saw the person behind the timing. In 1988, Michael J. Fox married Tracy Pollan, and for the first time in a long time, home started to feel like a place you could put your feet down. Their first child, Sam Michael, arrived in 1989. Picture this: new baby, career on fire, hands full, heart fuller, but life has a way of stacking plot twists. In 1990, his father, William Fox, passed away. Grief moved in and refused to take the spare room. Even with success screaming in one ear, loss was whispering in the other. Around the filming of Doc Hollywood in 1991, a tremor showed up in Michael J. Fox's left hand. Nothing dramatic, just a persistent flicker. He shrugged it off because what else do you do when your whole world relies on your timing? But the flicker stayed. Tests followed. Then the sentence: Parkinson's disease. He was 30. 30. The word degenerative slices differently when you're that young. A doctor told him he might have 10 good years. What do you do with that? If you're Michael J. Fox, you do what you've always done. You show up. You work. You smile for cameras. You memorize lines. And in the margins, you memorize pill schedules. You move medication. Windows like chess pieces, so your hand holds steady for a close-up. You become an expert at hiding what you can't control. And when the lights go off, the bottle is waiting, warm and easy, telling you not to think too hard about tomorrow. Secrecy is a strange companion. It protects you until it traps you. Over the next years, the cost of the mask rose. The falls started. You'd think you see them coming. You don't. One moment you're upright, the next, the floor is closer than you remember. Cheekbone, fractured, arm, broken, leg, shattered, a hand that never fully healed right. But the worst toll wasn't the bruises. It was memory slipping through your fingers like sand. For a person who could run a script like music, those blank spaces felt like theft. Finally, a surgical option offered hope: a thalamotomy, a procedure to quiet the tremors. Think about the courage it takes to sign a form that lets someone enter the control room of your brain. Recovery wasn't cinematic. It was slow, foggy, and humbling. Bills still came. Expectations still knocked. Mirrors waited whether you wanted them or not. At some point, you hit a wall and decide whether to live there. Michael J. Fox didn't. He put down the bottle and picked up a pen. The first book, Lucky Man, hit in 2002. It wasn't a victory parade. It was a truth-telling. He wrote about what Parkinson's took and what, bizarrely, it gave: perspective, patience, the kind of gratitude that doesn't need perfect circumstances. Then, Always Looking Up, 2009. Not as a cheesy slogan, but as a daily decision. He wrote A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Future, 2010, for younger readers, and No Time Like the Future, 2020. A clear-eyed look at aging with a progressive disease. He wasn't polishing his image. He was opening a door and saying, "Come see how I'm doing this." Maybe it will help you do your thing too. Words are powerful. But there was a day he chose something even riskier. He testified about Parkinson's in front of lawmakers without taking his meds. No filters, no smoothing out the edges. The tremors were visible, undeniable. He let the reality speak. That wasn't spectacle. That was strategy. It cut through noise better than any chart ever could. It said, "This is what millions face." help us. That moment didn't just raise awareness, it recalibrated the conversation around dignity, disability, and urgency. From there, the mission had a home base: the Michael J. Fox Foundation. Since 2000, it's grown into the world's leading Parkinson's research organization, pushing for better treatments and the day when prevention, or a cure, isn't a dream, but a plan. Big numbers matter. Billions raised matters. But look closer. It's the clinical trials, the patient registries, the idea that we can spot the disease earlier, even years before symptoms, and change the arc. It's also the community, support groups where someone walks in scared and walks out, feeling less alone. That's impact you can't always quantify, but it changes lives just the same. All through this public fight, the private story kept its heartbeat. Tracy Pollan stood steady. She loved the man, not the myth. When he worried he was a burden, she made the line simple and devastating in the best way. You don't have to be strong. You just have to be here. If you've ever needed someone to tell you that, you know what a lifeline it is. Their family grew. Twins Aquina and Skylar in 1995, then Esme Annabelle in 2001. Picture the house: cereal spills, science projects on the kitchen table, someone's music a little too loud in a back room. Parkinsons lived there too, but it didn't own the place. Laughter was the loudest thing. If a fall happened, they picked up, patched up, and moved on. That's not denial. That's courage, with sleeves rolled up. These days, you'll find Michael J. Fox moving at a human pace along the California coast. It's not retirement in the way we use the word. It's a deliberate slowing down. He eats mindfully, keeps up with physical therapy, meditates, uses a wheelchair when distance or safety calls for it, and has even dropped some weight to lessen the impact of the falls that still come. His face is leaner, but the smile still fires quick as ever. He isn't everywhere, but when he shows up, it matters. A surprise guest spot here, an interview there, a fundraising event where he and Tracy Pollan arrive hand in hand. The clap might be softer now, the lighting gentler, but the presence? Still electric. Awards found him along the way. National honors, medals, distinctions. But here's the thing. If you ask him what counts, he'll point to different trophies. The handwritten letters from strangers who say, "Your hope kept me going today." The young researcher who lights up explaining a new idea. The volunteer who organizes a walk in a small town because someone they love was just diagnosed. That's the legacy that grows while the cameras aren't looking. So what do we take from Michael J. Fox? Not that he outran Parkinson's, he didn't. Not that he faced it without fear, he didn't. The lesson's sharper than that. It's that you can tell the truth about your pain and still be joyful. You can fall and not call yourself a failure. You can lose some abilities and still gain a bigger life. You can go from fighting for yourself to fighting for strangers and find out they were never strangers at all. Remember the kid who felt invisible? He built a life that makes other people feel seen. He brought that same Marty McFly spark to real-world stakes, optimism, not as a mood, but as a practice. And look, we're not tying this up in a bow. Parkinson's is relentless. Some mornings, Michael J. Fox has to relearn the basics, and he's honest about that. But here's the miracle. He gets up anyway. He chooses humor anyway. He chooses love anyway. That anyway is where the courage lives. It's where ordinary people, me, you, everyone watching, can live too. If he can keep showing up under that kind of weight, what's our excuse for the next hard thing on our list? There's also this beautiful paradox in his story. The kid who never stayed in one town long enough to be remembered now belongs to the world in a way that can't be erased. The actor who once worried about being too small turned that smallness into an advantage: speed, timing, warmth, and then into a megaphone for millions. The star who could have disappeared behind gates chose to walk out front, shaking, yes, but unafraid of being seen as he is. That's not a fall from grace. That's grace in motion. If you've ever laughed with Marty McFly, rooted for Alex P. Keaton, or found yourself choking up when Michael J. Fox said he was okay with not being okay, you're part of this light he's still carrying. It shows up in research labs, in hospital hallways, in living rooms, where someone is learning the new language of a diagnosis. It shows up in families who decide to keep the jokes coming, even on the rough days. It shows up every time someone decides to be kind on purpose. Now, here's where you come in. Drop a line for Michael J. Fox, a memory, a thank you, a moment when his story steadied you. Share it so somebody scrolling by at 2 a.m. finds it when they need it. And if this journey hit you in the gut or lit a spark, do the simple, helpful thing. Tap like. So this message travels farther. Subscribe so you're here when we share the next story of a life that refuses to give up. Because the stage lights do dim, the roles do end, but the light you pass along, the light he's been passing along for decades, that's how we keep the path visible for the people walking behind us. You won't believe what happened next? We just told you. Michael J. Fox kept going. And because he did, so can we.